Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Today's episode of This Week in Venture Capital is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique corporate law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs, and by Detroit Venture Partners, an early-stage fund with an all-digital strategy. DVP is run by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs.
You're not going to want to miss This Week in Venture Capital if you're a football fan. This week we have the head of NFL's digital media group, Jeff Berman. Tune in.
Yeah. I think we're gonna hit it good. Ride through my city, jealous ones still envying. They hate me with a passion, even though they never met me.
My guest this week, Jeff Burman, I'm really happy to have you. You run digital media for NFL. Welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be here.
How long have you been doing this for?
2 years.
2 years. Now, before that, you were at Myspace immediately, or did you do anything between that?
I was essentially Myspace between. I had a little break where I caught my breath, joined the board of a company, did some other work, but
popped out a couple kids.
Exactly.
And what prompted you in this world in which, so 2 years ago, 2010, startups were getting hot, digital media getting hot. What prompted you to want to go work for the NFL? Were you just a huge fan, or was there something? What attracted you to this?
Well, I'm definitely a fan. I mean, it'd be hard to do the job, or at least do it well, if you're not. But there's certainly no more valuable live content in this country than NFL football. There's no more avid, passionate fan base at scale for anything in this country than NFL football. And beyond that, it's an institution. I mean, it's really in the fabric of America at this point in a way that's bigger than kind of anything else you can point to. And the opportunity to create products and experiences for fans to engage with it in our digital world seemed like a pretty cool opportunity.
Did they already have a digital media group and you just came in for that, or was this something newly created?
Yeah, they created the NFL network, cable network, about at this point 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago. They brought digital in-house about 5 years ago, and they were really ready to start scaling it, and I was fortunate to get the opportunity to help do that.
And it was the right timing, I guess.
It was a great opportunity.
So I'm gonna ask you all sorts of questions about the business and how you guys operate, but I'd like to get straight to the topic. I guess most people watching the show would want to know, how do startups actually get to work with the NFL? Is it through your group? Do they go directly to the team? How hard is it to work with the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a variety of ways in, but primarily startups are directly connecting with people in my group, and we're assessing which ones we have real needs for and where they're filling a gap that we don't currently have. And then it's a pretty detailed process from there. As you can imagine, not only are we a big company, but it's not only a privilege to get to work there. In many respects, it's a privilege to get to work with us. Yeah. And so we have the opportunity to really help make a startup. And so when we go through the process, but once you get through the process, if you make it through, it's pretty exciting.
But you don't have an NIH mentality. You're willing to work with third parties. Give me an example of someone you've worked with.
It's actually beyond that. We very much know that there's a whole innovation economy happening outside of our walls, and that we're not going to invent every next great thing. So we're looking to work with others, and whether it's you or it's Dana Settle or Paul Brico, particularly in town, who are reaching out and saying, hey, there's a company in our portfolio that we're looking at investing in. I think would be a really good fit for some of the things I understand you guys are working on. Yep. A lot of it, frankly, comes through that. Same with our friends.
So the same almost advice I would give people for accessing a VC or M&A transactions, the referral network matters a lot.
It matters a lot. Now, I'm constantly surprised by the number of cold reach outs I get from people at companies where I know people who are advising or investing, and sometimes I'm going back the other way and saying, these guys reached out to me.
Should I talk to them?
I don't want to waste their time. We don't want to waste my time. Is this worthwhile? I'm constantly amazed by how underutilized those relationships are, and it's certainly helpful because if someone I know and trust calls and says this one's worth the time, they're going to get the meeting.
I frankly am always surprised when people reach out to me and haven't tried to get an intro. And it's not an elusiveness thing. It's just when you're in a world where you have such limited time and so many people contacting you, it does provide a very useful filter. I met with a lady today who was introduced to me by Steve Blank. And I pretty much said to her, I said, well, I don't really care what other VCs think. I really don't. But if Steve Blank sends me an intro, I'm going to take the meeting, right? He doesn't send me many. When he does, I take the meeting. And it just provides a very useful filter. It turns out she's very talented and qualified and whatever, but the world is filled with talented, qualified people. You need to get that warm introduction to stand out.
It's also easier for me, frankly, to say to you or another trusted source, look, I appreciate the intro. This is one that we're not really looking for right now. If we are down the road, that's great. Or, hey, if it's helpful for me to talk to them to size the opportunity for you, for other publishers, I'm happy to do that as a favor as well. But we were talking earlier, John Steinberg from BuzzFeed was sitting in this chair having this conversation with you and was talking about suspects and prospects. And there is no more valuable commodity than time, and you got to know what your suspects are and what your prospects are.
Absolutely. Now, Clay Collins is in the chat room, and he says he's interested to hear what kind of rights you have to NFL games. Is there content mired in typical Hollywood content restrictions and contracts, or do you have complete control?
So obviously we have a very broad set of relationships with everyone from NBC, CBS, ESPN, et cetera, to Fox, to DirecTV, as well as with Verizon Wireless. So the answer, not to lawyer the question, is it very much depends.
Right.
So for example, through NFL Mobile, only available through Verizon Wireless, you can get Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, full games, live streamed. You can also get
through the NFL.com application.
Through the NFL mobile application.
Okay.
You can also get the NFL's Red Zone channel.
Okay.
Right. So DirecTV Sunday Ticket has their own offering.
Right.
So the answer is it very much depends. Outside of the game window, the rights get much less complicated.
Okay.
Inside the game window, we are navigating a rights matrix.
So do you have a lot of like replay action that is exclusive to you? Do other people get those clips?
We do have, so we actually have a product called Game Rewind, which is every game, essentially right outside of the game window, full length, also cut down to 30 minutes. It's effectively snap to whistle. So let's say you're at the Eagles game, but you know that the Patriots had a killer game that day and you get home and you want to watch it.
Or I'm out drinking beer because I'm so depressed about how bad they are.
It hasn't been their year, but there's always next year.
Yeah.
But the other neat thing that we've added into that this year is coaches film. So that's that sort of high camera angle that shows all 22 players at once. So we've added that in as well, and you can tellustrate on it. So you can be John Madden with that content, and then you can publish screenshots of that onto your blog or into social media or what have you. So the idea for us is very much to, within the rights that we have, to give fans the most access and most control that we can give them and just create the best experiences possible.
And so really there are unique video assets that people, prior to you having these on your NFL.com application, no one was watching those kind of videos, like the 30-minute videos. Were they provided elsewhere?
No,
or
they really weren't.
View?
I mean, the NFL Network had a version of that where they would replay games, and actually it's pretty neat because they'll cut in interviews with players from post-game. At RG3 has an incredible play. They cut in a little clip from the post-game interview as that play is airing, giving you some context. We also have sound footage from on the field on a show called Sound FX, and we work those clips into the digital media offerings as well.
Right.
So it's trying to get the fans as much as possible inside the game and inside that experience, and giving them as much control as we can over how to engage with it.
And so give me an example of a tech startup that you've worked with. So let's use that as an example of how to work with you.
Yeah, so we have launched this year a fan rewards platform. It's sort of a first effort for us. It's effectively a public beta of a rewards platform, and we're working with a company up in Seattle.
I think I know who introduced you to them.
I think you do, and the power of the warm introduction.
Yeah.
So we're working with them on that. Paul Brico introduced us to a couple companies recently which have some offerings that have some potential for us, and we're looking at how we might work with them next year. We're also engaged with a lot of small developer shops because, we simply are not going to have the scale internally to do everything we want to do. And so we're working with a pretty broad range of them, whether on independent offerings, particularly in the mobile gaming space, or on integrated offerings to make sure that we're offering the richest possible
Do you guys
set.
have games at all? I mean, well, I guess you have fantasy.
We have a core fantasy game, which is
that within the remit of your group, or it's elsewhere in the
very
NFL?
much within the remit of our group, and a massive engagement engine, and a terrific game, and it's the only game that has in-game highlights built into it. So
how long ago was it actually? How long ago did NFL get into fantasy?
We brought it in-house 3 years ago.
Okay.
We'd previously licensed our game out. And it's growing leaps and bounds, and it's just cool. I mean, you're sitting there, you're watching the game on the big screen, and Ray Rice, gets 4th and 29, picks up 30 yards, and you got him on your fantasy team. Well, you may be watching some other game. That highlight pops up within about 60 seconds
right.
on NFL.com Fantasy. So we're able to do some pretty neat things with it. One of the things that we found is, fantasy is it's an extraordinary experience. In many ways, it's the original second screen experience for football fans, even before there was a second screen. I mean, you're sitting there madly trying to keep track on paper and then get your USA Today on Monday morning and total up your stats. But it is a big investment. And so we've created a set of more casual games. We have a fantasy challenge. It's a week-to-week game where you and I could both pick Tom Brady as our quarterback and Ray Rice as a running back. But the goal is to pick the top quarterback, top 2 running backs, et cetera.
Okay.
Get the perfect fantasy lineup, $1 million prize if you hit it. We have a pick'em challenge where each week you pick who's going to win which game, et cetera. And those are becoming more and more a way for fans to get engaged and test their appetite for this, and then they tend to funnel up into the core fantasy game.
So Robbie Jabed would like to know, he's curious I'm going to ask a different question, which is Ramvaz. It was just scrolling too fast. Why was the decision made to share your clips only through a link URL and not an embed code? Do you know?
To share our clips through where?
I can't tell you where. So I presume you can take clips.
Yeah.
And people can then go put them on their blog or do whatever, or do you try to control it all? Or maybe that's why you don't have an embed code.
We do manage a lot of the experience on NFL.com. We think we can offer the best experience there. A lot of what we offer, and as a video provider, we're pretty sizable. I mean, we're approaching 1 billion streams a year just on NFL.com and NFL Mobile, I think we developed some pretty advanced technology that refers the most logical next video to you and engages the viewer in a deeper and deeper way.
Right.
So we want to provide that most robust experience possible.
So you, I guess, are watching what's going on with social media and how social media itself is changing the interaction with the NFL overall. What observations do you have about Twitter or Facebook or other social media sites and how they're changing the nature of how people consume NFL?
It's extraordinary. I mean, if you look on an average Thursday night, tonight during the New Orleans-Atlanta game, I guarantee you, even with just one game going, 3 or 4 of the top trending items on Twitter are going to be related to that game.
Yep.
I mean, it's just extraordinary, the power of it. So on a Sunday afternoon, when we have multiple games going at once, outside of the top promoted tweet, we tend to own all 9 unless something major is happening in national or world affairs. Right. I mean, it's extraordinarily powerful, and I think there is a virtuous cycle here where fans see something excited, they publish into social. In this instance, I think it is largely Twitter driven. People see that, they go, "Oh, I got to get to a TV. I got to turn on my phone, get onto Red Zone on NFL Mobile, and see what's going on." And that self perpetuates. So that's certainly happening. We've seen Facebook more as a engagement engine during the week and less in game.
Okay.
That is where we view Facebook more as an extension of our publishing platform. And we publish content into Facebook, engage fans there, bring them back to .com for the deeper engagement.
But Twitter actually drives consumption of the TV show, because if someone just scored a touchdown or there was an amazing play or it's a tight game with 2 minutes to go. I mean, I know if it's a really tight game with 2 minutes to go, I'm saying you should turn on your TV set.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So do you try to channel that in any way?
Well, we do. I mean, one of the things we've done is we have created a hashtag convention. So we have on our properties, we're using a consistent way of hashtagging the games. So, Washington against New York on Monday night is going to be WS v. NYG.
Okay.
And tonight's game is going to have the same thing for Atlanta and New Orleans. So
right.
Obviously, because Twitter doesn't have a way of piecing together 3, 4, 5, 6 different variations of it into one, and so you want to maximize the power of the trending by doing that. That's kind of how we've approached it. I think a lot of this, though, is just fan-driven. Right. I mean, the fans want to be there. They're already there. They're already doing this. We're capitalizing on it. And frankly, some of what we're doing is you'll see at NFL retweeting fan comments. I'm not sure that for an avid NFL fan who's also a Twitter user, there isn't something more powerful than that. I mean, that alone is a massive engagement engine for our fans. It's terrific.
Now, second screen TV, for those who don't know, second screens often you're watching in real time on the big screen, but you've got an iPad or a Kindle what are the Android ones called? The Nexus
the Galaxy.
Or your mobile device, and you've got the first screen, and then you've got a little screen on your lap. I presume that the application you want open during that is your NFL application. What have you learned about how people use your mobile application during the game versus before or after?
It's fascinating because for us, the mobile application is both a first and a second screen.
Okay.
Because with NFL Mobile, you can get the Red Zone channel on a Sunday afternoon live. I mean, and I do it. I'm walking around my house, and I mean, God help, there's a kid in the way. It's horrible, but the reality is I'm not at the office. I am watching. So there is a first screen experience for the 3 games that we can run through there and for Red Zone. The second screen experience is really in the game windows divided into 2 parts. Primarily, one is fantasy, which again, you want to be checking your fantasy and, okay, Rice got 30 yards, what did that do for me, et cetera.
But I think that's great because the thing that I got upset about football is I started going to friends' houses and I just want to sit and watch the game I want to watch. And they're constantly flipping all the freaking stations all the time to go check their fantasy players.
Yeah.
So the idea that they can just leave one game on and use their iPad to check their fantasy teams, I think is great. That must drive use of your...
Well, it absolutely does. But Red Zone channel, which is growing like crazy, is also manna from heaven for a fantasy player, right? I mean, the constant whipping around to every game where there's meaningful action is extraordinary, and it's a killer application. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a way to stay focused on, you're an Eagles fan, you're a Redskins fan, whatever it is. Watch your game, but still be able to track the players who you're keenly interested in. So the other piece of it is really scores, stats, and news. And, our product's called Game Center, ESPN has one, et cetera, where you can follow in pretty good detail what's happening in these other games and almost be virtually watching the game. And those products haven't evolved much. That's a place we're investing some time and energy, and particularly designing for the smaller screens to create what I think will be a much more engaging and entertaining product for people who do want to focus on the smaller device as the second screen.
I had an interesting conversation with a friend this week. I'm going to write it at some point, but I'll break it here on the show, which is, in the past, I used to talk to people about customer acquisition, and everyone always said TV was not a cost-effective way to acquire customers, TV advertising. And what he said to me was, in the last year and a half, that has changed completely. And the reason is, he can buy, not in the expensive 7 to 11 time slots, but on a Sunday if he's trying to buy Real Housewives of New Jersey or something. He can buy for $8 CPMs, And you are getting conversion of people watching the show because you've got women sitting with an iPad on their lap. They see a commercial and they type it directly in. So what I had always believed was conventional wisdom is people watch TV, and then there's a huge drop-off of those people actually going to a computer and remembering to search for said item. And he said that has narrowed so much that it's become more cost-effective. He went from, I won't reveal his total ad budget, but is tens of millions of dollars. And he went from 0% TV to 2/3 of his entire ad budget's now TV, and he stopped acquiring online.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. I mean, I'll tell you, for fantasy, we do run TV, and you can't get perfect analytics on this without thousands and thousands of custom URLs, and it's challenging. But we've banked into about 29% of our fantasy conversions were either driven or heavily influenced by TV. And I think the integration of the TV with the digital is very much where it's at, and that's where we spend a lot of our time, not only as an advertiser, as a user acquisition piece of our business, but working with our partners who advertise with us and creating the right experiences on all the screens. And it is all the screens now, right? It's not just 2 or 3. So that if someone sees something on the NFL Network, there's a companion something on our digital properties that matches up. And so if you come to it, there's a natural entry point. And we're working very hard with our partners on the TV side to create better and better experiences there and find ways to almost create true roadblocks.
Do the TV networks themselves view you with some sense of future competition? If people can watch on the NFL application, should they be worried that you're driving an audience there?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that what we've seen is as we have increased the fan touch points, ratings for NFL games are only going up.
Right.
And so, the proof is kind of in the pudding at the end of the year when as many of the top shows on TV are going to be NFL games as they are, and the numbers go up and up and up year after year after year. It's hard to argue that this ecosystem isn't creating more awareness, more demand, and higher ratings. I mean, if you could pick one thing to have live television over the course of a year on a TV network today, in this country, there's only one choice. It's not even close. Right. So, so far, we've struck a very healthy balance there.
Now,
and Mark, there was a question was asked before about the embed versus the link, and it just occurred to me what he was asking about. So, look, we are a Tiffany brand, and we're very careful about where our content lives, and that's exactly why we don't allow just anyone to embed our content anywhere. We want to make sure that our content lives in brand-safe places, and that's the answer to that question.
So if you have an embed code, people could take your video and put it elsewhere, and they could have it on porn.com or whatever.
Or something gambling-oriented or what have you, and we steer miles from that line.
Now, you have an application. You try to get people to download it from Google Play or from the App Store. You also have the mobile web, as I know. When I type in, every Sunday, I think I'm on NFL.com, and when I type it in on my mobile device, as I often do, you recognize me as a mobile customer and serve me up a custom HTML5. What do you think the future is? I mean, are apps here to stay? Are you getting so much more significant value from that? Is there any extra cost for you of doing that? Where do you see the whole HTML5 versus application?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's clear as mud. What we're seeing now on a Sunday in season, nearly 60% of our visits are coming from mobile. Okay. 60. We're just shy of 60%.
Wow.
Okay. This past Sunday, tablets hit almost 10% for the first time.
10% of total, or 10% of mobile?
10% of total. So and this is to the second screen conversation we're having earlier.
But just to be clear on my math then, so what you're saying is 50% of all traffic to NFL.com during the game are on small form mobile devices.
What I'm saying is that across our properties, I mean, it's not just NFL.com, so it's a little.
Okay.
It's not NFL Mobile is not exactly NFL.com, and we have NFL 12. So without getting into the complexities of it, just shy of 60% were coming from mobile devices. Just shy of 10% were coming from tablets.
Okay.
Now that's a blend of apps and mobile web and apps on tablet and browser-based.
So that
tablet.
includes apps.
That includes
Okay.
apps. The breakdown of app to mobile web is roughly 50-50.
Okay.
That's what we're seeing right now. Now, where that goes is a little hard to say. I do think that the presence on the actual screen of the device and the ability to communicate directly to the fan through that device, that we already have that power from the app, that's pretty compelling. And that's a place we're certainly investing a lot of time and energy. I hear all this talk about mobile first. The way we think about it is fan first.
Right.
And the fans are on these devices. We know that we have to serve them world-class experiences on these devices.
So do you design, you do design, I know you do. How do you think about the design on a small form mobile device in terms of what you serve your fan differently than if they were on the desktop web?
Yeah, I mean, this is from a lot of usability testing and focus grouping and other work. But what fans are consuming is not actually that wildly different on the smaller form devices than the larger form devices. We do have slightly different rights constructs. So, we can offer Red Zone directly through NFL Mobile on Verizon. We can't offer that except on an authenticated basis through the desktop or the tablet. So there's a little bit of difference in the rights landscape there, but by and large, the consumption patterns are very, very similar. And Tim Tebow content was driving a huge amount of our traffic on traditional NFL.com and on mobile last year.
Right.
RG3 is doing it this year.
Right.
And if we put up something RG3 related that's a good bet, we're going to see pretty high engagement rates with it across platforms.
So really, individual talent does have a profound impact on how much media, NFL media is consumed.
The Friday morning after Tebow led the Broncos to beat the Jets on Thursday Night Football and NFL Network last year, we were up 100% year over year.
Wow.
We got to the point where we had a daily Tebow content plan. I mean, we had to. The fans were demanding it. We're not quite seeing that same level with RG3 this year, but it's pretty incredible. And he led jersey sales this past weekend, Black Friday through Cyber Monday. And that consumer behavior tracks very much the fan interest with him on our platform. So it's the individual talent can have a huge impact on how people are engaging with us. Absolutely.
Let's talk a bit about other stuff you've done. You were on the board of Buddy Media, if I'm not mistaken. That was a pretty wild ride.
That was an extraordinary ride.
How did you get involved with Buddy Media? Why do you think it became such a smashing success?
So Mike and Cass Lazaro, the CEO and CEO of the company, married. I've known them forever. They were out in LA. They told me that they had built an analytics platform for Facebook. We had whiteboarded one when I was at Myspace. I told them I'd love to see it. Next time I was in New York, they showed it to me. And candidly, they'd built something better than we'd whiteboarded.
Right.
And we started talking about where it could go. They had an open board seat, and they were generous enough to offer it to me. And, I just think that as a team, not just Mike and Cass, but the team they built around them, people talk about strategy, people talk about execution. The reality is you got to have both.
Right.
And these people know how to do both. Most people in the industry know Mike or know who he is.
Yep.
Cass is almost the secret weapon. Brilliant operator, brilliant marketer, and they're just a killer team. So I think that they entered the marketplace early in the right way. They had the guts to pivot the company from a business model that didn't look like it was going to scale.
How did it start? What was the starting business
They were
model?
really building widgets for Facebook.
Right.
And it's really what they were doing. There were some other things they were doing. That was really the guts of the business. And they saw this other opportunity, and it was clear publishers, marketers were going to flock to Facebook. It was already happening, and Facebook wasn't investing in building these analytics. And then where it was pretty clear it was going to go from there, they were going to need tool sets to do it. So, they built what I would argue is the best product in that space, and continue to add on both through homegrown and acquisition the best products in the marketplace.
Right.
They certainly did some of the best B2B marketing you've probably ever seen a technology startup do at that stage.
Yep.
I mean, what they were doing in airports and
I saw it.
Right? I mean, it was incredibly compelling stuff. And so the combination of the killer product with the killer marketing and the killer team, and then the timing was just right, because the bigger players who could enter the space started getting interested, and you saw a kind of a quick spate of acquisitions. And, you know, Mike and Cass and the board decided it was the right time for the company and the right partner in Salesforce.
So just quickly, if anyone from This Week In staff is watching, my chat window is completely effed up. If you could come fix this, that would be super awesome while we keep talking. Now, before NFL, you were at Myspace.
I was.
And you did a variety of things there. You ran their video group, if I'm not mistaken, and policy and communications. What did you learn from your Myspace experience? What things didn't work at Myspace or did work at Myspace that you carry with you to this day?
Yeah, I mean, I learned an awful lot. I mean, first of all, I was very blessed because I was given an opportunity to do something that was in my wheelhouse, which was policy and kind of crisis communications. And Chris DeWolf, who's the guy who hired me and for whom I worked, gave me a set of opportunities thereafter to really move over to the business side. You know, I learned a few things. First of all, it is a very simple management philosophy that I and my team adhere to, which is the right people in the right roles, agree on goals, agree on resources, and get the hell out of their way.
Yep.
So that's very much how we operate. The other is there's a patent quote that I'm very fond of, which is how we very much operated on my teams there, which is a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week.
Totally agree.
Let's get it 80% right. Let's go. The consumer's going to tell us the last 20% a heck of a lot faster and more accurately than we'll figure it out ourselves, spinning cycles in rooms, whiteboarding, et cetera. You know, I think we struggled at times with getting through tough decisions about where to take the business and sticking to those courses of action. And it's a hard balance. The Buddy Media is a good example of where the right thing to do is pivot and make the move. But sometimes you got to stick with it and give your effort time to breathe and make it work. And that's an interesting balance, which frankly I still struggle with.
One of the things that seems to suit Mark Zuckerberg so well at Facebook, which I wonder if it played a role, is his ability to spot what's going on in the market. And because he has somewhat of a dictatorial control, he can just move the business as he needs to. I mean, the Instagram acquisition being, you know, the perfect example. I think Larry Page coming in now as the real CEO of Google and trying to cut out the bureaucracy is probably trying to respond to that. Any lessons learned there?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know to what extent Facebook is sui generis. I mean, you know, it's sort of a thing unto itself.
Yeah.
You know, you know, certainly Apple was under Jobs. I mean, that's just a different beast. That's a different kind of entrepreneur, leader, executive, whatever noun you want to use. You know, certainly having a clear vision and being able to execute on that vision, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yep.
That matters a lot. Too many cooks in the kitchen, I mean, it ruins the dinner. There's no question about that. You know, I don't know, in fairness, if Facebook is Facebook and Mark is Mark without Sheryl. And certainly he has the ability to say, we're moving, we're going this way, but he also has a business partner who's helping keep them on track where they need to be on track and build where they need to build. So my gut is it's a blend, but the vision's got to be clear.
Now, in the private chatter, and I'm not sure that I agree with this, but in the private chatter that I've been hearing at dinner parties lately is that people think Facebook is becoming MySpace. The argument is, and I think even Bradley Horowitz from Google kind of took a jab at him this week and kind of said similar, which is, as inauthentic ad products are increasingly slipping into our Facebook sphere, and people growing tired of that as they need to show the growth to hit the Wall Street numbers, that people increasingly are tuning out to Facebook as the young crowd no longer desires to be on Facebook, as the people our age who 2 years ago all spent a bunch of time on Facebook because they connected with their high school friends and then suddenly decided they didn't necessarily want to see what their high school friends were doing, are disengaging. You think there's any truth to any of that?
I don't know. I mean, look, I certainly have. I love Facebook. I'm an avid user of it. We use it as a business.
Actually, I do see you a lot on Facebook.
I am, but by the way, I publish into Facebook probably only 50% overlap with what I publish into Twitter because I have a closed network on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I don't tend to publish about my kids or talk about my kids on Twitter. I do on Facebook. So there's a different use case for me personally.
Yeah.
My complaints about Facebook personally are, one, I would like more control over my stream,
Yep.
and they've got their algorithm, and that's great. But the second is really the Mark Cuban complaint,
right,
which is we've worked hard to build a pretty big audience there as a business. You're throttling our reach,
yeah,
even though we're publishing in some of the smartest ways, I think, of any publisher out there.
I think technical people or savvy internet people will understand this, but I'm going to simplify a little bit to make sure everybody understands this. So in Twitter, when you write a tweet, everyone who follows you sees it. Everyone. And if they don't like what they see, they unfollow you. And it's easy to unfollow someone on Twitter, and I think that's part of the beauty of it. Also, because Twitter is asymmetric, meaning 500,000 people can follow you, and you only have to follow 500 back if you want, it's easier for people to choose to follow you or not. On Facebook, a couple of the problems. One is it's symmetric following model. So all the people who try to friend me on Facebook, I keep thinking, I don't think you want to see pictures of my kids, and I don't necessarily want to share them. I set up both sides of the table on Facebook as a fan page to try and get over that problem, not to be elitist. I wanted people to be able to engage with me or my content on Facebook without having to confuse that with showing pictures of my kids. But when you think about the stream that goes through Facebook, instead of 100% being published into it, if you set up a fan page, only some people actually see that in their stream. In the old days, when there was only fan pages, a lot of that went into your stream. Facebook made the decision that they wanted less stuff from your fan page going into stream, and they started promoting something called the Open Graph, as you know. I'm sorry to do this slow, but I want to be sure people follow. The Open Graph, you'll know the timeline on the right that now shows all the assets that you're touching. I listen to music on Spotify. I shared this game-winning touchdown on NFL.com. I presume you guys have an Open Graph integration. And they wanted to promote that, so they started pushing more of the timeline Open Graph into the stream, which is where most people's attention is. We, a company I invested in, it's called Pose. Mm-hmm. We did an Open Graph integration, and so we had a fan page, and we had the Open Graph, and we work with talent like Rachel Zoe, who has a fan page, but also can publish stuff into the Open Graph. We were seeing 5 times more conversion of people clicking on content if you put it in the Open Graph on the timeline than on the fan page. And the complaint of Mark Cuban and other people is, you, Facebook, are gaming the system. We're investing money with no visibility. You're gaming the system of what actually goes into the stream. And they don't like that. And I think, sorry to be so long-winded on that, but that's what's going on, right?
That's perfectly said. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Now, here's the problem with that, if you want to take the counter-argument, is that kind of stuff has always been going on, just nobody talks about it, or the mass audience don't talk about it. It's called Google search algorithm. You know, we invest tons of money in appearing high in SEO, and then they launch Panda, and 25% of our traffic goes away because they decided they want the quality to go up of the search algorithm. I think it's an age-old thing that we all have to face as marketers.
I get that, and in many respects that's a fair analogy. I think in others it isn't, because what we have done as a publisher is selectively publish content into Facebook to engage fans who self-identify, say, raise their hand, I want this direct relationship with the NFL. I want to see the content that they're putting out there. And it simultaneously deprives us of the value of the investment we've made. It also deprives the fan of the ask that they're making. It feels more unfair than Google tweaking its algorithm, and all of a sudden we have to go back to work on our SEO
I get that, because it not only affects the brand who's publishing, but if I choose to follow the Philadelphia Eagles fan page and then I'm not necessarily seeing all this stuff pushing the stream, I feel like I'm getting cheated.
I think that's right. And we're protective of our fan relationships. I mean, they matter an awful lot to us.
Right.
They are the business at the end of the day.
I mean, are you able to, as an organization, effectively sit down with a company like Facebook and say, look, this is why we're not happy with the fact that you're controlling the algorithm?
We have conversations with Facebook, Twitter, others on a regular basis, and some are more fruitful than others. But you know, it is helpful that we can have those sit downs. I mean, I got to work with Adam Bain at News Corp, so
Yep.
I know him and have a long-standing relationship with him. We certainly have good relationships at Facebook, for that matter, at Tumblr as well, which we're spending more time looking at and thinking about. So
now, SDELBECQUE, I don't even know where to start and end with that name. Estelle Beck would like to know, how does data produced by NFL feed third-party developer ecosystem, including mobile ones? Do you allow assets to be taken to third parties, or do you try to control it all?
we've not yet. We've looked at it. Some of our friends in the space have experimented with that. If we can find a compelling reason to do it, a way to do it that gives developers valuable content that allows them to go build around, that may be something that's interesting for us to do. We also have limited resources on our end and have
Right.
to make decisions about, you know, how to simultaneously serve the fans best while building the best business. So it's something that we look at periodically. It's not something we've made a decision to do yet.
I guess in some ways it parallels the issue that Twitter itself has, which is you gain from other people taking tweets and doing things with them that expand your audience. At the same point in time, as you'll know with Twitter, they're concerned about how the tweets ultimately get presented and used. And so you might say, yeah, we'd love to have NFL assets on many different sites, but we don't want it used in ways that wouldn't represent our brand well. So in a way, you want to control that.
It's easier when we're talking about a relationship with an ESPN or, for that matter, a Yahoo. You know, that's an easier situation for us to manage. You know, we're very cautious about letting it go out to the wild for those brand reasons.
ESPN is both a major beneficiary of the NFL and probably a major promoter of the NFL. Isn't it Chris Berman? Is he related to you?
We're not related. I
people ask
occasionally
that?
claim it, but we're not
He's
actually
phenomenal,
related.
isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's a legend.
Do they ever get competitive with you? Because now you, in effect, are not just a league, but a media property?
Yeah, I mean, we are a media property. So, you know, we have a morning show on the NFL Network that competes with ESPN's morning show. We have a fantasy game that competes with ESPN's fantasy game. So, you know, we are in co-opetition, or whatever word is in vogue.
Friendly competitors.
That's
yeah.
right. But you know, use fantasy as an example. The number one priority for us is we want people playing fantasy, right? I'm thrilled if you're playing on ESPN. We would love for you to be playing on CBS. That's
Right.
great.
Because
That's
it
great.
means you're going to be engaged more with the league.
The average fantasy player is several times more engaged with National Football League than a non-fantasy player.
Right.
And it's logical. It makes sense. You got to research the players, and you're invested in, you know, not just your game, but in every game almost on every weekend. And, you know, week 14, even if your team might be out of the playoff hunt, you know, is meaningful in a fantasy world because maybe you're playing against your brother, your sister, or whatever. So, you know, number one, we'd love for you to play fantasy. If you're going to play, we'd love for you to play on NFL.com, but hey, if it's a choice between, you know, not playing or playing with ESPN, please play with ESPN. That's great. And
Right.
it's great for their business, great for our business as a whole.
Have you ever considered creating your own social network? Is that something that enters your lexicon, or is it's already been done, we'd rather support the ones out there?
I struggle to see how we do it in a way that, again, adds meaningful value for our fans while being a smart business decision. I think that there are components of what we do that can introduce new things into the social universe, new social tools, new assets for our fans to publish into social. But to create the NFL's own social network, owned and operated, I don't quite see that. I think that there are some things we can do around photos that could be pretty interesting, that could be a thing unto itself. we're certainly spending a lot of time looking at that. But a pure social network, I have trouble seeing how we do that.
One of the business ideas that keeps getting presented to me, I've seen at least 3 or 4 of them over the last 4 or 5 years, because everybody knows how engaged and passionate sports fans are social networks or applications that help people either in stadiums or stadia, I guess you would say, better trash talk or communicate with themselves or, form themselves into networks. Have you ever thought about anything to do with physical location or in the stadium or enhancing those experiences?
Yeah, look, I mean, the in-stadium experience is a huge priority. I mean, the game is great on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great experience on TV. The game is even more incredible there. And we want to make sure that when you go to the game and you make that investment and you bring your kids, you go with your family, that you have as extraordinary an experience as possible. And certainly every fan carrying at least one mobile device these days. And what we can do on that is very powerful. Now, the big challenge is making sure that you've got a connection strong enough to be able to do those things.
Yep.
And that's a place we're investing a lot of time and resources, energy, focus
into bandwidth and infrastructure.
Yeah, it's challenging at 70,000 people in one concentrated location.
The interesting thing about enhancing the in-stadium experience is one of the frustrations in the stadium is wanting to see what happened, like the replay.
Yep.
And, I guess the Dallas Cowboys are kind of leading the way in having giant TV screens. But I think a lot of fans probably want to be able to see replays and stuff.
Look, I think we would love for fans in stadium to be able to see not just instant replays from that game, maybe special camera angles, maybe enhanced statistics from the game. I think there are all kinds of things that, as the technology evolves, we can deliver to fans in stadium, and it's certainly an area of focus for us. I mean, look, there's nothing like in this country being at an NFL game. Thursday, Sunday, Monday, it's just a special experience. We want, to your point, you want to be able to see that replay. We want you to be able to see that replay, and we want to give you as much control over that as possible. That's the best possible experience. That's what we want to deliver.
As you know, I'm taking my older son to his first ever football game later in December to watch the Eagles beat the Redskins, and I'm really excited to have that in-stadium experience with my son for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, look, I took my 6-year-old for the first time a few weeks ago, and it's the sights, the sound, the colors, the action. I mean,
even just seeing other fans, even just experiencing the passion that other people have for the sport.
It gives you chills. I mean, it is a special thing, and there's like a tribal quality to it, right? I mean, there's something very primal about it, and I think it touches people very deeply emotionally. And the idea of having a 9-year-old at a first football game, it's very cool.
It is tribal, and it's something that my wife struggles to understand. And what I said to her is, I think it's part of human nature. I think it's tribal that we all want to be part of a greater experience. Because when you think about it, Jeff, it's totally irrational that we get passionate about watching other people play something that we feel passionate about the outcome, yet we're not playing, and yet people are very passionate about it.
Look, we ran on the NFL Network, NFL Films did a documentary on John Riggins, as part of our Football Life series. I grew up in the D.C. area. I grew up watching, the Riggo drill, and watching the Big Diesel, and I'm sitting there watching it with my wife, and I feel like I'm a 10-year-old kid again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when you grow up with it, especially, it is just so deeply powerful, and to be able to pass it along to your own kids, boys and girls, because a huge percent of our audience is female. This is not just a male sport. It's not just a male institution. It's a very special thing. I think we're seeing more and more fans who didn't grow up with it converting to it because whether they marry into families or they bond with friends over it, it's unique.
What does the NFL.com or your application do for international, I guess? I mean, can international people pay for your service and watch the games?
Yeah, the rights are obviously a lot less complex outside of North America. So we do offer all the games streamed live and then on demand, as well as Red Zone, as well as NFL Network, through a product we call Game Pass. And that's a product that's been growing leaps and bounds over the past couple of years.
I would imagine this would be a priority for the NFL overall because it expands the international audience. I mean, I lived abroad, as you know, for 11 years, and it was very difficult in that time to be able to watch football. Like, it just wasn't broadcast. And the idea now that people all around the world, I know, soccer is obviously the big global sport, and we're not going to suddenly have football fans be 30% of the population in Japan or anywhere, but large pockets of people around the world probably are passionate about NFL.
Yeah, and when we, first of all, we've got 2 games going to London up from 1, right?
Okay.
So we've made that commitment to start going there twice a year. And the Jaguars are effectively the home team for London now, so they've made that commitment and that investment, which I think is very exciting. But what's been interesting with this Game Pass product is when I came into the league and we took a look, I assumed this is all expats. This is, the fact of the matter is it's not. It's largely driven by foreign nationals who've been exposed to the game, whether living or traveling through the U.S. And look, there's almost no one left in the United States who's not a football fan in some way or another.
Right.
Certainly, growing as a business, looking outside the United States is where the big opportunity sits.
Do you have any data, or do you guys ever talk about the breakdown of male-female split?
Yeah, it depends which way you cut it, but north of 40% of the fans are female, and that includes avid fans. I mean, it's a very healthy and growing number. We launched a new consumer products initiative that's women's apparel, which is really designed for the women fans, and that's been a huge growing part of our business. So it's funny. Someone on my team suggested that we create kind of a women's portion of NFL.com, and I said, well, what would that be? So kind of intro to football, and I said, well, I don't know. That, to me, that's insulting to all the women fans out there who are avid fans.
But it's I don't know if it's true or not, but it's certainly conceivable that women and men are interested in different aspects of the game.
That's a different question. That's a different question. But frankly,
I don't know the answer, but it's conceivable.
Yeah, but that to me is a different question. But the fact of the matter is, we don't see it on NFL.com and our mobile properties. We see women consuming content in very similar patterns to men. There is not a material difference that we've been able to identify from the data. We look at it. We haven't seen it. But the core point for me is the number of avid female fans out there surprises most people when we talk about it. And the reality is it's just a sport that everyone loves.
Next up, what are the big initiatives for NFL digital or NFL media? I think a couple areas. First of all, we talked about the omniscreen presence and the delivering these world-class experiences across screens and making sure that we are over-delivering on mobile as our fans are there is core, and tablet as well. Second is really the coming together of TV and digital. And we've incubated 2 shows in digital that have migrated to the NFL Network, one of which is one of the top-rated shows on the NFL What's
Network
it called?
now. It's NFL Fantasy Live.
Okay.
It's 5 days a week, and then on Sunday.
You started it as a digital property.
Digital-only show. We were live streaming it and then on demand through NFL.com and NFL Mobile, and it's now it's airing twice a day on the NFL Network, and it's doing a great number. So, but the idea of creating features in digital that can migrate to become features within shows or podbusters on the network, more and more taking what's on the network and cutting and packaging it in compelling ways in digital. That's frankly a lot of where we're spending our time. And we're co-located. I effectively sit knee to knee with the executive producer of the network, and we spend a lot of time thinking about how to serve the fans across platforms this way and leveraging the data to do so. I mean, 2 years ago, we didn't have real-time analytics informing us on our digital publishing strategy. Well, we fixed that real quick, but now Total Access, which is kind of the signature daily show on the NFL Network in the early evening, we might reprogram the B block based on the data that we've seen during the day on digital.
Right.
And I'm not sure that there are many cable networks that are able to really work that way.
I guess to some extent, we talked earlier about RG III. For those of you who don't know, is the quarterback of the Redskins, and Jeff didn't own up to. Are you allowed to say which team you support? Or
Officially, I'm a fan of all 32.
You are,
but I grew up in the D.C. area, and I probably read every single article that we post on RG3. There's no question.
So we'll just say RG3 is a national phenomenon right now.
That's right.
He's the quarterback of the Redskins. He became, I guess, a big enough deal that there was just an op-ed post in the New York Times by Maureen Dowd, who said President Obama should act more like RG III.
I think if we all had a little more RG3 in of us, our days.
Why do you think he's taking? What's the appeal?
Without commenting on the advice to our president, look, he is. First of all, the guy's just a born leader. You can feel it coming off him. Second of all, he has an incredibly positive attitude, and he projects, humility and a leadership. So he was asked the other day, who he thought Rookie of the Year should be. Well, he's pretty much leading candidate.
Yeah.
But there's a guy who lines up behind him in the backfield named Alfred Morris, who's a rookie who's on track to cross 1,000 yards this year. And he said, "Look, I'm not going to vote for myself. I'm going to vote for my buddy in the backfield." And he has a great combination of skill on the field and leadership qualities and frankly values that come through.
That's what Maureen talked about. She basically said Obama seems to be insular and about himself, and RG III seems to be about the team and promoting the team and showing that sense of positive leadership.
Yeah, I just think we've had conversations about politics before, and I think that the American public craves a few things very much right now: intimacy. Authenticity, competence are kind of at the top of the list, I think. RG3 has all those. I mean, competence, the guy is insanely talented ball player. But you listen to him talk, you watch him be interviewed, just watch the way he pulls a huddle together. You feel like you know who he is, and you feel it's real.
So that's the intimacy.
I think
Speaking of intimacy, does the NFL have policies about tweeting?
We do. I mean,
are those openly published? Or?
I don't know that we publish them openly, but
you try to encourage people to follow certain guidelines.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different for staff versus reporters. I mean, so we break it out, but look, David Eaton, who's our news editor for both digital and the network, he calls social media an idiot test. And
how so?
Well, don't be an idiot. You post something that you're going to get suspended
There's
for.
There's a lot of edits.
Right? There's a lot, right? And if you are working at a place like the National Football League, no matter if you don't identify yourself as an NFL employee, what have you, come on, man. Just be smart about what you say and how you say it. And frankly, it's part of why I'm different on Twitter than I am on Facebook. My Facebook's a closed network.
I have to tell you, Jeff, intimacy is something people don't talk enough about Twitter. What I like about Twitter is, I use it mostly as media consumption. I go and I look at what are the top stories and what's going on and what do people think. And I can follow people like you, and I can see pointers to interesting news sources that I don't necessarily frequent, but you do, and you put it, and so I click on it. But I find some people are bots on Twitter, and all they do is broadcast out stuff. Now, I do use Twitter to broadcast my blog because it's a way to reach an audience, but I also respond to people when they message me, not all the time, but when I can. Occasionally, I'll put pictures or what's going on or whatever, and I feel like what people who want to know you crave is intimacy. They want to feel like you're a human being, and I feel like the people who are the best are the people who do that. I know that some of the, I'll take Richard Rosenblatt, and you obviously know Richard. In the early days, he was all over the board on Twitter and wanted to be on all the time, and everything just seemed to me to be like broadcast with him, and I found it really boring, and it didn't feel like a human being, so I just unfollowed him. Whereas people who will occasionally be human on Twitter, I love that. I love that I get to feel like someone I want to know. I get to kind of know a little bit more about them.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, we probably follow a lot of the same people who you could say that of. I mean, there's some very high-profile people like a Kara Swisher who certainly does that, right? She'll blend posting all things
I love
with
reading
the Instagram from her kids.
And I love, but even more than that, I love that she has if you go to Kara Swisher, and there's two settings on Twitter. You can see see all of their comments, or you can exclude at messages. If you go look at her at messages, she's all over the place at messaging people. She uses it as a way to talk to people.
Yeah, but then there are people like Hunter Walk who will ask the most fascinating questions and get that long list of responses, and he does engage with them. A big Google guy in Hunter. It is a way to get a deeper insight into some of the people who you may know casually, you may not know at all, and to have a direct relationship.
How do you use Twitter? And when you use it, are you an NFL employee, or are you restricted a little bit?
I'm careful. I'm careful.
As all people should be, because you represent both yourself as a human being and whatever else you do.
Yeah, I have a bit of an absurd disclaimer. Tweets and opinions are mine. The reality is, I work where I work, and certainly a percentage of what I'm posting about are interesting things from the world of the NFL. But, I have a background in law, politics, and policy. I have, real interest in the broader media and technology world. And so it's a balance. But I'm definitely careful about it. And then look, candidly, my wife's preference is that we not share pictures of our kids broadly. And so I'm much more careful about it.
I try my best not to. I'll tell you what's interesting is I backdoored into a little bit of that because on Instagram I was a little more open. And then I thought Instagram was going to be a place where 100 people followed me, and lo and behold, there's like 5,000 or 6,000. And I haven't taken them down. I've just come to grips with it, but I really try less so.
Yeah, it's just it's a blend, and it'll be interesting to see whether a Path or someone else who tries to occupy that really private space can emerge, or whether Facebook becomes more of that for more people. That's not Twitter. To me, Twitter, the power of Twitter is the real time, and it is to your point, the asynchronous relationship, which allows thousands of people to follow you, but doesn't require you to see everything that they're posting, which is important.
Yeah. So anyway, if you are on Twitter, I would suggest always be conscious of what other people are reading. I do see people who get extreme on politics. And Jeff, you follow me on Facebook, and we all also know each other. Occasionally on Facebook, I will put something political, not deeply political, but for example, when Bobby Jindal spoke up about the Republican Party needing to be the party that is not against science, not being the dumb party, I was so happy to see a Republican finally saying what needed to be said. I put it on Facebook. I didn't put it on Twitter because I don't want the crazies coming out. On Facebook, the crazies came out.
It's going to happen, but look.
But I'd rather do it on Facebook.
Yeah.
I feel like on Twitter, it's not really a place for me in politics.
No, I think it's harder to have a thoughtful conversation on Twitter on some of these things than elsewhere. And my politics are a matter of public record. I worked where I worked. I have a public LinkedIn. You can see it. I worked for the senior senator from New York, Chuck Schumer. But some of my best friends are Republicans, and I want to be able to have a thoughtful, nuanced discussion and debate with them, and frankly with Democrats where I disagree with Democrats. And Facebook tends to be an easier place to have that.
I'll tell you a funny, we should wrap, but I'll tell you a funny NFL Twitter story. I'm an Eagles fan. I think that's not very controversial. You love them or you hate them, but NFL is just about smack talk. Well, I'll tell you two quick stories. One is every year I've been betting with Dave Tisch, not money. We bet that whoever wins or loses, the other person has to change their Twitter logo for a week.
There you go.
To the opposing team's jersey. So we've bet that 3 times. All 3 times he's lost. And he's had to put Michael Vick with an Eagles thing on it, which was very painful, especially for a guy whose last name ends in Tisch. The only time we didn't bet that, we bet a dinner, he won. So anyway, it is pretty painful to imagine having to put the opposing team's jersey as your Twitter logo. And one time I put a post about the Eagles beating the Cowboys, and again, I was just friendly ribbing people. Turns out one of my investors is an avid Cowboys fan and he didn't find it humorous. Said he didn't want to see me do that again. He sent me an email saying, imagine my displeasure at being at 32,000 feet in the sky, checking my Twitter status and hearing you talk pop about the Eagles beating the Cowboys.
These are deeply, deeply held relationships.
Yeah.
You can't insult someone's spouse. You can't insult their team. You got to be careful.
I have been very careful about about my statements on Twitter. Anyway, listen, real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for coming and spending time. Thank you as NFL Digital Group on working with startups, and it's an important thing, and I would love to see more startups working with you guys, because there's no doubt that digital and NFL is going to continue to be a growing trend. So
I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Great to see you, and hopefully a useful discussion.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark.